"Human, my mother needs a mate, and I wish for a father. Please wed her and help lead the galaxy." From this height, the city on the planet below looked like a jewel, scattered with glittering lights of homes, government buildings, and transport hubs. The hum of spacecraft engines filled the air around him, soft but constant, like the pulse of life itself. He hugged his knees, thinking about the problem that had been growing in his heart for weeks. "My mother needs someone," he whispered to himself, "and I wish for a father." It sounded silly when he said it aloud, but it was true. His mother, Governor Lyra, had spent decades leading the planet's council, bringing together dozens of species, and maintaining peace in a galaxy that was as diverse as it was unpredictable. Yet in all her brilliance, she had no one to share her life with. Zia had been wishing quietly for a father, someone who could guide him and stand beside his mother as a partner, not just in life but in leadership. He took a deep breath, then activated his personal communicator. The screen flickered to life, displaying the live interstellar broadcast channel. His fingers danced across the keys, hesitating as he typed. "Human, my mother needs a mate and I wish for a father. Please come to Aurora Prime and help lead the galaxy with her." He paused, rereading the message. It felt bold, almost foolish. But in the end, he pressed send, letting it travel across the stars. He didn't expect anyone to respond. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, scattered across distant planets and colonies. Most had little interest in politics outside their own systems, but Zia also knew that sometimes hope had to be bold to work. 2 days later, a reply appeared on the broadcast channel. Zia stared in disbelief as the words scrolled across the screen. "I am a human. I accept. I will come." The message was short, simple, and unmistakably confident. It was signed, Elias, a diplomat and explorer of human origin. Zia's heart leapt. He read the message again, making sure it wasn't a trick or a joke, but it was real. A human was on his way to Aurora Prime. The next weeks were a blur of preparations. Zia helped his mother ready her guest quarters, cleaned up the house, and even rehearsed what he might say to Elias when he arrived. But the truth was, Zia had no idea what to expect. He had imagined a human in many ways, serious, formal, maybe even stiff. But he had never imagined someone as calm, confident, and undeniably charming as the man who finally stepped off his spacecraft. Elias was tall, with warm brown eyes and a smile that seemed to put every being in the room at ease. He walked with purpose but without arrogance, nodding politely to the various council members who greeted him. Despite being a human in an alien city filled with beings of many shapes and colors, he seemed completely at home. "Zia," Elias asked softly, his voice gentle but curious, "you must be the one who sent the message." Zia nodded, feeling suddenly shy. "Yes, I'm Zia." "And you're here," Elias smiled. "I am. I came as soon as I could. Now I'd like to meet your mother." Zia led Elias to the governor's chambers. Lyra looked up from her desk, surprised but intrigued. She was tall, elegant, and commanding, with eyes that seemed to measure everything at a glance. Her presence alone made the room feel alive with authority. "And you must be Elias," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard of you." "I hope only good things," he replied with a small bow, "and I hope I can help." Lyra studied him for a moment, sensing something unusual. Humans were not common in her council, and those who came rarely stayed. Yet there was a warmth in Elias that was rare among visitors, a combination of confidence and humility. He was not just another diplomat or explorer. He seemed different. Over the following days, Elias was introduced to the routines of Aurora Prime. He attended council meetings, observed alien rituals, and even participated in the zero-gravity banquets that Zia insisted were a necessary introduction to local culture. At first, some of the council members whispered among themselves, skeptical of this human who had arrived so boldly. But Elias had a way of listening, observing, and offering solutions that made even the most stubborn alien delegates pause. One evening, as the three of them walked through the gardens that hung above the city, Zia asked, "Do you really think you can help us?" "Lead with my mother," Elias smiled, gazing at the stars above. "I don't know everything about your galaxy, Zia. But humans, we try to see what others don't, to solve problems in ways that might seem strange at first. Maybe that's what you need here." Zia nodded slowly. He could feel a spark of hope rising inside him. Perhaps a human really could make a difference. In the weeks that followed, Elias and Lyra began working closely together. He asked questions, challenged assumptions gently, and sometimes offered solutions that were simple but brilliant. He had no arrogance, no desire to overshadow Lyra, only a determination to help her and the council succeed. Zia watched these interactions with amazement. He had wanted a father, someone who could guide him, protect him, and even inspire him. He realized that Elias was doing more than just helping his mother. He was teaching him, showing him that leadership could be compassionate, clever, and courageous without being harsh. One day, while they were reviewing plans for a new trade alliance between distant star systems, Zia noticed something unusual. Some of the council members who had doubted Elias were now smiling at his suggestions, nodding in agreement, and even laughing at his light jokes. The human who had arrived as an outsider was beginning to win their trust, not through force or power, but through wisdom and kindness. Zia felt a swelling pride. He had been right to send that message. This human was more than a potential father. He was already becoming someone the galaxy might look up to. Even Lyra noticed the change. She had led countless negotiations, commanded armies, and mediated conflicts between species with rival instincts. But Elias had a way of seeing problems from a new angle, blending empathy with practicality. He challenged her to think differently, while still respecting her experience and authority. One evening, after a long day of meetings, they all sat together in the garden again. The city below glowed like a constellation come to life, and the stars above seemed brighter than ever. Zia leaned against Elia's shoulder, feeling safer than he had in years. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he said softly. Elias chuckled. "I hope that's a good different." "It's the best," Zia replied. Lyra watched them, a small smile playing on her lips. Perhaps this human was more than just a visitor. Perhaps he was part of the future of Aurora Prime, part of the life she had been building for decades. And perhaps, just perhaps, Zia's wish for a father might come true in ways none of them had expected. The galaxy stretched endlessly around them, full of challenges, mysteries, and opportunities. But for the first time, Zia felt a certainty he had never felt before. That with Elias here, with his mother by his side, and with his own determination, they could face whatever came next together. As the stars glittered above and the city thrummed below, Zia whispered once more, almost to himself, "Thank you for coming." And somewhere deep in the cosmos, the journey of a human, a governor, and a boy with a wish for a father had only just begun. Elias awoke to the soft hum of Aurora Prime City below. From his window, he could see the glimmering towers and hover bridges stretching toward the horizon. The air was filled with the faint scent of alien flora, a mixture of sweet and metallic tones, and the quiet murmur of citizens beginning their day. He stretched, feeling both excitement and anticipation. Today would be his first real test, not of diplomacy, but of fitting into Zia's world. Zia appeared at the doorway almost immediately, bouncing on the balls of his feet. "Good morning," he exclaimed. "Ready for your first day of cultural integration?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "Cultural integration," Zia grinned. "Yes, you have to learn our customs, meet the council members, and survive the banquets without accidentally insulting someone from 100 different species." Elias laughed. "Sounds challenging, but I accept." Their first stop was the council chambers, a vast room filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Each delegate had a unique appearance, some with multiple limbs, some with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, and some that seemed entirely humanoid but had subtle features that betrayed their origin. Zia whispered quickly, "This is the test. Watch and listen. You can learn a lot just by paying attention." Elias nodded, observing silently as the meeting began. Lyra entered gracefully, drawing the attention of every delegate. She spoke with confidence but also warmth, addressing each representative by name and acknowledging their contributions. Elias noted how carefully she balanced authority with respect. When it was his turn to speak, he felt a pang of nervousness. Humans were rare here, and he knew that his every word would be scrutinized. But he remembered Zia's encouragement and took a deep breath. "Honored council members," Elias began, "I am here to learn from you as much as I hope to help. I may not know all your customs yet, but I promise to listen, observe, and contribute wherever I can." A few delegates exchanged doubtful looks, but others nodded. One, a tall being with translucent skin, tilted its head curiously. "You are brave, human, to speak in our assembly without familiarity," it said. Elias smiled. "Bravery often comes from curiosity." The meeting continued with discussions about trade routes, resource sharing, and planetary security. At first, Elias stayed quiet, listening and taking notes. But when a problem arose that had been debated for weeks, an allocation disagreement between two planets, he suggested a solution. "Why not consider a shared schedule based on planetary cycles?" he proposed. "Each planet gets resources according to its season, with adjustments to balance shortages." There was a pause, then murmurs spread through the chamber. The delegates had not expected a human to offer such a practical, unbiased solution. Lyra's eyes lit up, impressed. After a brief discussion, the council agreed to implement the suggestion on a trial basis. Zia's jaw dropped. "That actually worked." Elias shrugged. "Sometimes a fresh perspective is all it takes." After the meeting, Zia took Elias on a whirlwind tour of the city, showing him everything from floating markets to gravity-defying gardens. At every turn, Elias asked questions, genuinely curious about alien life and eager to understand their ways. He tried alien foods, laughed at strange customs, and even attempted a local dance that involved spinning while hovering in the air. Zia couldn't help but laugh at the awkward but good-natured effort. By the afternoon, Elias was invited to his first zero-gravity banquet, a formal event where officials floated above a large hall, holding trays of food with multiple appendages or levitating devices. The first few minutes were chaotic. Elias spun in midair, narrowly avoiding a collision with a large winged delegate. Zia rushed to grab him, steadying him. "Relax," Zia said. "It's all about balance. Let your body float, don't fight it." Elias nodded and exhaled slowly. Soon he was gliding gracefully, passing food and conversing with various delegates. He listened carefully to their concerns, asked thoughtful questions, and even cracked a small joke that made several delegates chuckle. By the end of the banquet, many were nodding in his direction, impressed by his adaptability. That night, Zia and Elias walked through the gardens again. The city lights shimmered below, casting a warm glow on the paths lined with strange, glowing plants. "You're doing better than I expected," Zia admitted. "Most outsiders couldn't handle even a single day here without offending someone." Elias smiled. "I'm just trying to observe and respect. That seems to work in most situations." Zia tilted his head. "It's more than that. You're human in a way that actually matters here. You see things differently, and that makes people listen." Elias felt a quiet pride, but also a weight. He knew the journey ahead would be more than adapting to customs or learning etiquette. To help Lyra lead the galaxy, he would need to prove that humans could offer unique solutions to complex problems, without relying on technology or force, but through thought, empathy, and collaboration. The next day brought the first real challenge. Lyra had arranged a simulation exercise for Elias, a test designed to show how well he could mediate disputes between alien factions. Zia explained, "It's like a game, but with serious consequences. You have to keep everyone happy, solve problems quickly, and avoid mistakes that could make things worse." Elias stepped into the simulation chamber, where holographic projections of planets and alien leaders filled the space. The scenario was complicated. Two neighboring planets were disputing a resource allocation that, if unresolved, could disrupt trade across several systems. The projections moved and spoke, mimicking real council members' personalities and temperaments. At first, Elias felt overwhelmed. The variables were endless and the holograms argued constantly. But he took a deep breath and remembered his approach. Listen first, understand each perspective, then propose a solution that considered everyone's needs. Hours passed. Elias asked questions, suggested compromises, and occasionally paused to think creatively. Slowly, the holograms began to respond positively. One leader even smiled, a rare gesture in alien simulations, when Elias proposed a shared resource plan that rotated usage and included a mutual development project. When the exercise ended, Lyra and Zia applauded. Elias had not only completed the task but had impressed them both. Zia ran up and hugged him. "You're amazing. You really understand people, not just rules." Lyra nodded. "Your human perspective is valuable. I believe you can help lead not just this planet but the Council itself, in ways I could not have imagined alone." Elias felt both humbled and encouraged. The simulations had shown him that humans could make a difference, even in a galaxy filled with beings far older, wiser, and more powerful. It wasn't about strength or technology. It was about insight, compassion, and creative thinking. Over the following days, Elias continued to immerse himself in Aurora Prime's culture. He practiced alien languages, learned about planetary traditions, and even helped mediate minor disputes among council members. Zia watched eagerly, thrilled that his plan had worked. His mother was smiling more. The council was responding positively, and he could feel the spark of something extraordinary forming. One afternoon, Elias accompanied Lyra to a council meeting on a trade dispute between three planets. The delegates were tense, voices raised, and Zia peered at him nervously. Elias took a deep breath and spoke slowly, clearly, and with respect. He asked questions that prompted the delegates to think about common goals rather than differences. He suggested compromises that allowed each planet to benefit while keeping the others satisfied. By the end of the meeting, the tension had eased, and the delegates left with tentative agreements. Zia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Did you see that? You actually changed their minds." Elias smiled quietly. "They had the answers all along. I just helped them see it." That evening, the three of them sat together in the garden, sharing a quiet meal beneath the stars. Zia leaned against Elia's shoulder, feeling a sense of security he had never known before. Lyra watched him, sensing that Elias was becoming more than a guest. He was becoming part of their family. "You're doing more than I expected," Lyra said softly. "You're teaching Zia, helping the council, and even making me see things differently." Elias shook his head. "I'm learning from all of you as much as you are from me. That's what makes this work." Zia beamed. "I knew sending that message was the right thing to do. I just didn't imagine it would be like this." Elias reached out, placing a hand on Zia's shoulder. "Sometimes the best journeys start with a simple wish." And in that moment, under the glowing alien plants and endless stars, Zia felt a hope he had never felt before. His mother had a companion, the galaxy had a human who could see things in new ways, and he had a father figure, someone who would guide him, teach him, and help him navigate the future. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown challenges, but Zia realized something important. With Elias here, they could face anything together. And so, the first days of cultural trials and courtship came to an end, leaving behind a bond that promised to grow stronger with each passing challenge. The future of Aurora Prime, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was beginning to shift, and humanity, through Elias, was about to leave its mark. The sun of Aurora Prime had barely risen when an urgent message arrived at Lyra's office. Its arrival sent ripples through the council chambers, drawing the attention of every delegate. The holographic display projected the image of a planet in distress, Korvath, a mining world on the edge of their trade network. Sensors indicated that several major resource shipments had been blocked, creating tension among the neighboring systems. Lyra studied the report carefully, her brow furrowed. "This could escalate fast," she murmured. She turned to Elias, who had been observing silently. "We need a plan, and we need it now. Will you help me lead the response?" Elias nodded, already scanning the data streams. "Tell me everything you know about the situation. Who is involved, what resources are at stake, and what pressures are creating conflict?" Zia hovered nearby, his eyes wide with concern. "It's serious, isn't it?" Elias placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's serious, yes, but with careful thinking we can handle it." Over the next several hours, the council gathered for an emergency session. Korvath's neighboring planets argued fiercely about access to rare minerals critical for their technology. The debate was heated, filled with accusations, threats, and stubborn pride. Many council members expected Lyra and Elias to act as mediators, but the sheer complexity of the dispute left even experienced leaders frustrated. Elias listened carefully, taking note of each planet's priorities and the underlying tensions. He observed that the conflict wasn't just about resources. It was about pride, fear of loss, and lack of trust between the systems. He turned to Lyra. "We need a solution that addresses more than just the minerals. If we only focus on the resource, the resentment will continue." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "And how do you propose we do that?" Elias outlined his idea: a rotational resource-sharing plan combined with a cooperative development initiative. Each planet would contribute a portion of its production to a shared fund, used to improve infrastructure, technology, and trade efficiency. The program would rotate leadership responsibility among the planets every few months, ensuring no single world held too much influence. Some delegates frowned, unconvinced. "It sounds idealistic," one said, "but how do we enforce it?" Elias smiled calmly. "We don't enforce it through power. We enforce it through transparency, mutual benefit, and shared responsibility. If each planet sees the value in working together, enforcement becomes unnecessary." Lyra's eyes shone with approval. She had always relied on strategy, alliances, and sometimes brute force to maintain peace. But Elia's approach, gentle, human, and yet clever, offered a new path. She turned to the council. "We will implement a trial program based on this plan. Let us see if cooperation can succeed where conflict has dominated." The session ended with cautious optimism. Delegates left, discussing the plan not with anger but with curiosity. Zia looked at Elias with admiration. "I didn't think they'd listen, but they actually did. You really can make a difference." Elias shook his head. "The difference is not mine alone. It's our willingness to work together." After the meeting, Lyra asked Elias to accompany her on a visit to Korvath itself. Zia insisted on coming along as well, eager to see how a human handled a real planetary crisis. The journey took several hours by starship, and during the travel, Elias spent time learning about Korvath's environment, economy, and culture. The planet was harsh, with rocky terrain, deep canyons, and vast mineral fields. Its inhabitants were industrious and proud, fiercely protective of their land and resources. As they approached the main city, the tension in the air was palpable. Miners and officials alike eyed the newcomers warily, uncertain whether they represented aid or interference. Elias stepped forward with confidence but humility. He greeted the Korvathian council, bowing slightly in respect. "We are here to understand your needs and help find a solution that benefits everyone." The council members were skeptical. One, a broad-shouldered miner named Kor, crossed his arms. Humans rarely understand our struggles. Why should we trust you? Elias looked him in the eye. I don't expect blind trust. I expect that we listen, learn, and find common ground. That's how lasting solutions are made. Over the next several hours, Elias conducted meetings, listened to complaints, and asked questions designed to uncover hidden concerns. Zia observed him closely, impressed by the human's patience and insight. Unlike many leaders, Elias did not interrupt or dominate discussions. He gave everyone a voice, and in doing so, allowed the Corvathians to see that their problems were being taken seriously. By evening, Elias proposed a modified plan. It involved scheduled sharing of resources, joint technological projects, and a council of representatives from each planet to oversee the program. Each step had built-in flexibility, allowing planets to adjust as needed, which eased the fears of the more skeptical delegates. Core, initially defiant, finally nodded slowly. It may work if we all commit to it. Lyra smiled at Elias, a mixture of pride and relief. You see what I did. You see the people behind the problem, not just the problem itself. Elias shrugged modestly. Sometimes it's easier to think like someone else, to step into their shoes before making a decision. The next days were filled with careful implementation. Elias coordinated with local leaders, taught them methods of transparent communication, and encouraged collaboration. Zia acted as an eager assistant, translating cultural norms and helping Elias navigate Corvathian customs. As the planets began to cooperate, small victories emerged. Trade restarted in small volumes, disputes were settled without conflict, and a sense of hope returned. Even the most stubborn delegates began to see the benefits of working together. One evening, as they returned to Aurora Prime, Zia asked Elias, "Do you ever get tired of thinking so much?" Elias laughed softly. "Yes, but it's worth it. Every problem solved this way creates trust and understanding. That's how we grow stronger together." Zia's admiration deepened. He realized that Elias was not just clever, he had a rare combination of empathy, patience, and foresight. He was teaching Zia not only about leadership, but about being human in the best sense of the word. Back on Aurora Prime, the Council monitored Corvath's progress with cautious optimism. Delegates reported that the rotational program was stabilizing the region and creating goodwill between planets. Lyra praised Elias for his insight and skill. "You've done more than I imagined, not just in strategy, but in showing what humans can bring to leadership." Elias smiled. "It's not about being human, it's about being willing to understand others, to adapt, and to think creatively." Zia felt a surge of hope. The galaxy could be complicated, but humans had a unique way of seeing opportunities others missed. And with Elias here, they could navigate any challenge. Days passed, and the Corvath program continued to expand. Aliens across the council began asking questions about Elias' approach, curious how a human could handle disputes that had stumped generations. They marveled at the combination of patience, observation, and empathy. Elias became a symbol of a new possibility. That leadership was not about strength, force, or hierarchy, but about understanding, listening, and guiding. One evening, as the three sat in the garden once again, Zia spoke softly. "Do you really think humans can help lead the galaxy?" Elias looked up at the stars. "I believe humans have a way of seeing problems differently. Sometimes that makes a big difference. And I think together, we can do even more than any one species alone." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's rare to find someone who complements your leadership rather than challenges it. You've shown that humans can not only survive in this galaxy but thrive, and help others thrive too." Zia smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known. He had wished for a father, and now he saw the kind of guidance he could have. Not only would Elias be a mentor, but he could also be a partner to his mother, someone who shared their vision for the galaxy's future. As night fell over Aurora Prime, the stars shimmered with promise. Zia knew that the coming days would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities. But he also knew one undeniable truth. With Elias by their side, they had a chance to reshape the galaxy, one thoughtful decision at a time. And in that quiet moment, under alien skies and twinkling lights, Zia understood that human insight, creativity, and empathy were already making a difference, and the galaxy was listening. The council chambers on Aurora Prime had never been quieter, yet the air was electric with anticipation. News of Elia's success on Corvath had spread quickly, and delegates from multiple systems were arriving to witness the human who had brought harmony where conflict had long reigned. Lyra moved among them gracefully, her eyes bright with satisfaction, while Zia followed closely, barely containing his excitement. Elias adjusted his tunic and straightened his posture. He had been asked to speak today, not just as an observer, but as a co-advisor to the council. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the sense that something important was unfolding. He had come to Aurora Prime to help Zia's family, but now he realized the galaxy itself was watching. When the meeting began, Lyra introduced him with measured pride. Council members, you have seen the results on Corvath. Elias has demonstrated insight, patience, and creativity in resolving disputes. I ask that you consider his perspective as we plan for the future of interplanetary cooperation. Some delegates shifted uneasily in their seats. Humans were rare, and few had ever participated in council leadership. Elias sensed the skepticism but did not let it shake him. Instead, he smiled and began to speak calmly, addressing the concerns of each representative with respect and clarity. We have an opportunity to rethink how our systems collaborate, he said. Corvath was only one example. We can apply the same principles of listening, understanding, and shared responsibility to other regions. By working together, we create trust, stability, and prosperity, not just for individual planets but for the galaxy as a whole. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates whispered doubts, but others leaned forward, intrigued. One, a sleek, blue-skinned envoy, asked, "And you believe humans understand our cultures well enough to advise us?" Elias nodded. "I am still learning, but I am willing to listen, adapt, and guide where I can." The value is not in knowing everything, but in seeking understanding together. Lyra watched him closely, feeling a mixture of admiration and relief. His words were clear, honest, and disarming. He was not attempting to dominate or impress. He simply conveyed what he had observed, and the council responded. After the meeting, Elias walked through the hall with Zia by his side. "Do you think they'll accept your plan?" Zia asked, anxious. "They will if they see it works," Elias replied. "Humans often succeed not by force but by showing results." Over the next days, Elias and Lyra began coordinating not just policy, but the very structure of leadership itself. Lyra had always carried the weight of the council alone, balancing the demands of multiple species while ensuring fairness and efficiency. Elias' presence brought a new energy. His ideas were practical, but they also encouraged creativity and flexibility. One morning, as they prepared for a joint briefing with planetary governors, Zia whispered, "Mom, do you feel differently about him?" Lyra paused, considering. "Elias is more than a human visitor. He complements my leadership. He offers guidance without seeking control and insight without arrogance. That is rare, Zia." Zia's eyes lit up. "So could he stay, not just here but with us?" Lyra smiled faintly. "We'll see. There's more to consider than just presence. Leadership, family, the balance is delicate." That afternoon, Elias led a discussion on creating regional councils to decentralize decision-making while maintaining cooperation across the galaxy. His approach was methodical, combining data, diplomacy, and careful consideration of each species' unique needs. Lyra noticed how delegates began to respond not just to her authority, but to the collaborative model Elias presented. After the session, Zia approached Elias. "You make everything seem possible," he said quietly. Elias ruffled his hair gently. "Nothing is impossible if you approach it step by step, and sometimes it's okay to rely on others for guidance." Zia grinned, feeling warmth spread through him. He had wanted a father figure for so long, and Elias was beginning to fill that role, not through rules or lectures, but through patience, example, and quiet wisdom. The next challenge arose sooner than expected. A neighboring system, previously hesitant to participate in the council's initiatives, requested a meeting with Lyra and Elias. Their envoy, a formal figure with a strict demeanor, laid out concerns about shared resources, economic competition, and potential risks. Lyra began to respond with her usual confidence, but Elias interrupted gently. "Before we propose a solution, let's understand their perspective fully. What pressures are driving your concerns, and what outcomes would make you feel secure?" The envoy blinked in surprise. No human had ever addressed their worries in such a direct, considerate way. Slowly, the conversation shifted from tension to dialogue. Elias suggested compromises and creative arrangements that respected both security and opportunity. By the meeting's end, the envoy was nodding, impressed by the thoughtful proposals. Zia watched in awe. "He doesn't just fix problems," he whispered to Lyra. "He helps people see a better way themselves." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. That is what makes him invaluable. Not just as a human, but as a partner in leadership." As days turned into weeks, the bond between Lyra and Elias deepened. They worked together seamlessly, anticipating each other's thoughts, coordinating strategies, and quietly supporting one another. Zia observed this growing partnership with a mixture of hope and delight. It was more than professional, it was personal. One evening, as the city shimmered beneath them, Elias and Lyra walked through the gardens. Zia had gone to sleep, exhausted from a day of simulations and cultural lessons. "You've changed the way I approach leadership," Lyra admitted softly. "I've spent decades relying on strategy and authority, but you've shown me that listening and understanding can be even more powerful." Elias smiled. "Leadership is not about being in charge alone. It's about guiding together, sharing responsibility, and valuing others' perspectives. You've already done that for the council. I'm just here to help amplify it." Lyra looked at him, a flicker of warmth in her eyes. "And yet, you've done more than amplify. You've inspired." Elias hesitated, unaccustomed to such direct admiration. "I'm glad if I have. That is all I hope for, to help where I can." For Zia, watching this from a distance was like seeing a wish come true. He had wanted a father, someone who could guide him and stand with his mother. What he was witnessing now was more than he had dared imagine. A human who was becoming part of their family, someone whose presence brought hope not just for personal life, but for the galaxy. The council soon began formal discussions about including Elias in decision-making on a more permanent basis. Some delegates hesitated, worried about giving a human such influence, but the results on Korvath, and the way he handled skeptical systems, spoke louder than words. Lyra advocated for him, not just as a colleague but as a trusted partner. Zia could barely contain his excitement when he overheard the council's informal discussion. "He's proven himself," one delegate said. "If a human can lead like this, perhaps we underestimated the value of diversity in leadership." Elias continued to adapt gracefully, balancing council duties, family life with Lyra and Zia, and cultural immersion. He learned local languages, practiced customs, and even participated in the traditional games Zia loved. Through it all, he remained humble, patient, and curious, qualities that endeared him not just to the council, but to the citizens of Aurora Prime. One night Zia quietly asked Elias, "Do you think you could really stay here, with us?" Elias looked at him, a gentle smile crossing his face. "Zia, I came here because you asked for a father and your mother needed a partner. I believe I can do both." It will take work, but yes, I could stay. Tears welled up in Zia's eyes. He had never felt so certain that his wish might actually come true. Thank you, he whispered. Elias placed a hand on Zia's shoulder. It's not just my choice, Zia, it's ours together. And together we can face whatever comes next. The next morning, Lyra invited Elias to her office. I've been thinking, she said carefully, about what it means to lead together. I don't just want your help in council decisions. I want your partnership in every sense. Elias felt a mix of surprise and humility. Partnership? Yes, she replied. I want us to share responsibility, guidance, and life itself, not just for the council, but for Zia and the future we hope to build. Elias considered her words carefully. They carried weight, promise, and responsibility, but also an opportunity to make a lasting impact. I accept, he said finally, his voice steady. I will be your partner for the council, for Zia, and for the life we can build together. Zia, listening from the doorway, could barely contain his joy. His wish for a father had been answered, not in the simple way he had imagined, but in a way that surpassed every expectation. Elias had become more than a human visitor. He had become part of their family, a partner to his mother, and a guide for the galaxy's future. And as they stood together in the glow of Aurora Prime, Zia realized that the galaxy was no longer an unpredictable, distant place. With Elias by their side and Lyra as a guiding force, they could face any challenge, inspire any system, and shape the future of countless worlds. The partnership between Lyra and Elias was no longer just an idea, it was reality. Together, they would lead the galaxy, protect Zia, and show that the qualities of humanity, curiosity, empathy, and creativity, were forces capable of bringing peace, innovation, and hope to even the most complex corners of the cosmos. The city of Aurora Prime shimmered under the twin suns, its towers gleaming like precious metals against the sky. The council chambers buzzed with excitement and anticipation, for today was not just another meeting. Today marked the beginning of a new era, a time when leadership, family, and the hope of a united galaxy converged. Elias walked alongside Lyra and Zia through the grand entrance, feeling a mix of pride, responsibility, and quiet wonder. He had come to Aurora Prime months ago as a stranger, responding to a simple message from a child wishing for a father and a partner for his mother. Now he stood on the threshold of something far greater, a chance to shape the future of countless worlds while also fulfilling a role in a family he had grown to love deeply. Delegates from dozens of planets filled the council chambers, representing systems that had once been rivals, competitors, or skeptical observers. Many had come to witness the human who had proven himself not by power, but by insight, patience, and creativity. The hum of conversation quieted as Lyra took the podium. Honored council members, she began, her voice steady and commanding, we have faced challenges, disputes, and conflicts that once seemed impossible to resolve. Yet together, we have discovered that understanding, collaboration, and shared responsibility can create solutions that benefit all. She paused, letting her words sink in, then gestured toward Elias. I am proud to introduce my partner in leadership, Elias. He has shown us that human insight, combined with our knowledge and experience, can bring new strength and unity to the galaxy. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Elias stepped forward, bowing slightly, and addressed the delegates with calm confidence. I am honored to serve alongside Governor Lyra, and to help guide this council towards solutions that benefit all systems. I am not here to dominate or dictate, but to listen, to observe, and to work with each of you in building a future where cooperation and understanding outweigh conflict and division. Some delegates exchanged wary glances, unsure if a human could hold such influence. But as Elias continued to speak, outlining proposals for rotational governance, shared resource initiatives, and cross-system collaboration projects, murmurs of approval began to spread. The clarity, Logic and empathy in his words were undeniable. By the time the meeting concluded, tentative agreements had been made on multiple fronts. Systems that had once refused to negotiate were now willing to collaborate. Zia watched with wide eyes, realizing that the human he had wished for had not only become a father figure, but also a guiding force for the galaxy. Later that evening, the three of them walked through the gardens above the city. The alien flora glowed softly in shades of blue and purple, and the air was filled with a fragrant, calming scent. Zia clutched Elia's hand, feeling a sense of security he had never known before. "Do you think the galaxy really can work together?" Zia asked softly. Elia smiled. "It's not easy, but it's possible. We've already seen the first steps. If we keep listening, learning, and adapting, there's no reason we can't achieve more." Lyra placed a hand on Zia's shoulder. "And now we have someone who will guide us, not just through leadership, but through life. Elias is part of our family, Zia. He is here for us, and with him we are stronger." Zia beamed. "I'm so glad I sent that message." Elias laughed softly. "Sometimes, the simplest wishes can lead to the biggest journeys." The following weeks were filled with preparations for the formal announcement of Elias' role in leadership, as well as his inclusion in Zia and Lyra's family. Systems across the galaxy were invited to participate in celebrations of cooperation, peace, and unity. Delegates arrived from distant stars, bringing representatives of diverse species, each curious about the human who had changed so much. On the day of the ceremony, Aurora Prime's council chambers were transformed into a grand hall. Holographic displays projected the planets and systems that would benefit from the new collaborative governance model. Citizens and delegates alike gathered, excited to witness history in the making. Lyra and Elias stood together at the front, while Zia watched from beside them, his heart swelling with pride. As the ceremony began, Lyra addressed the assembly. "Today marks a new chapter for our galaxy. We have proven that differences are not obstacles but strengths. We have learned that leadership is most powerful when it is shared, guided by understanding, empathy, and collaboration." She turned to Elias, her eyes bright. "Elias, will you join me not only as a partner in leadership, but as a part of our family, guiding Zia and shaping the future of our people together?" Elias stepped forward, his expression calm but filled with emotion. "I will. I accept this responsibility and this honor. I will do my best to guide, protect, and support, not just in governance but in life itself." A cheer erupted from the assembly, not just for the human, but for the new model of leadership he represented, a blend of wisdom, empathy, and courage. Delegates from distant worlds approached Elias, offering congratulations, curious questions, and words of encouragement. Zia hugged him tightly, overwhelmed with happiness. "Thank you," Zia whispered, "for staying, for everything." Elias ruffled his hair gently. "I'm here, Zia. That's all that matters." The ceremony continued with displays of culture from multiple worlds, celebrations of cooperation, and joint pledges to support the new initiatives. It was a moment of joy, laughter, and hope, a time when the galaxy paused to imagine a better future. Later, as the crowds dispersed, Lyra, Elias, and Zia returned to their home. The city lights twinkled below, and the stars above stretched endlessly, like a canvas of possibilities. "You've done more than I ever imagined," Lyra said softly, taking Elia's hand. "Not just for the council, but for Zia and for me. You've changed our lives." Elias shook his head. "I've learned as much as I've helped. Leadership, family, and hope, they are all connected. We guide each other, and that makes all the difference." Zia leaned against them both, feeling warmth and safety. "I can't believe my wish came true," he murmured. "It did," Elias replied gently, "and it's just the beginning." Over the next months, the new collaborative governance model began to take root. Planets that had once been hesitant now participated eagerly, inspired by the success on Corvath and the example set by Aurora Prime. Trade flourished, disputes were resolved peacefully, and a sense of unity began to spread across multiple star systems. Elias continued to mentor Zia, teaching him not only about leadership and diplomacy, but also about patience, empathy, and creative thinking. Zia thrived under his guidance, growing confident in his own abilities and learning that being human was about more than strength. It was about curiosity, courage, and the willingness to try. Lyra watched them both, realizing that her own leadership had been transformed. With Elias by her side, she felt lighter, more inspired, and more connected to the galaxy. She could focus on innovation, collaboration, and nurturing the next generation of leaders, including her son. One quiet evening, the three of them sat together in the garden, watching the twin moons rise over Aurora Prime. The city shimmered below, peaceful and alive, while distant stars twinkled like promises in the sky. Zia spoke softly, almost to himself. "Do you think humans will always be able to help like this?" Elias smiled. "Humans have always had the capacity to adapt, to learn, and to inspire. What matters is willingness, willingness to listen, to act, and to care. That is what makes us strong, and it is what allows us to make a difference." Lyra added, "And when humans work together with others, respecting differences while finding common ground, we can create something remarkable. We can shape a galaxy that thrives on cooperation and hope." Zia leaned back, content. I think we already are." Elias put an arm around him. "Yes, Zia, we already are, and the journey is just beginning." From the observation deck above the city, they could see spaceships gliding smoothly between planets, carrying goods, messages, and people who now trusted one another more than ever. The galaxy had taken its first steps toward unity, inspired by a simple wish from a child and a human who had dared to respond. And in that moment, surrounded by family and the glow of Aurora Prime, Zia understood the truth he had always hoped for. Humans could make a difference, and sometimes, a single act of courage and kindness could change the future. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges yet to come, but with Elias by their side, Lyra's leadership guiding the council, and Zia learning to grow into his own strength, they knew one thing for certain. Humanity, in its best form, had the power to lead, inspire, and shape the stars themselves. And under the endless canopy of the cosmos, with hearts full of hope and hands joined together, the family and the galaxy looked forward to a brighter, united future.